place is unimportant. But this place, where sea and freshwater meet, is important. Opening lines to the roads, right? Now, this is the place from where we speak. Static. So, place is the central notion here, but it's a felt sense first. Louder? Yeah. You need louder, okay. Louder. Place is the keynote, the central notion, as is home. And so for me, it's like coming back. I taught in this classroom. Taught a film class, Visions of the Future from Matrix to Metropolis, Metropolis to Blade Runner, Matrix and beyond. And one day I walked in and the students were chanting, Koyane Scotzi, Koyane Scotzi. So someday maybe we'll be chanting Cascadia. So thank you, Paul, for the impresario. Where'd you go there? And all the volunteers in Seattle. It is like coming home. It's good to see friends, a family. The family. This is Marcia, my wife. She'll be indispensable running the show. Our wonderful children, Amanda, Matthew, granddaughter, Katie. Two key friends. There's Jim Riley and Dan Clarkson, who were a 30-year conversation helped conjure up Cascadia. Jim and I taught the first class at Chinook, now Whitby Learning Institute in the 70s. So what I'm going to do real quickly is give you a little background, give you a little bit of the history, and you can see some of the maps over here. And the one in the corner is the first map ever made of Cascadia. And then you can see some of the subsequent ones. However, there's new maps. Now maps give you a window. You look through that window into the territory. But it's that territory that I want to call out to us in a new way. So there'll be some new maps. And I want to also try to explain not what a bioregion is in the abstract, but show you, lead you through what we're looking for when we try to map a bioregion in depth. So that will be the main part of the show. So there's a slideshow here because that's the main way you can see the depths and the continuities. So I guarantee you'll see images, maps of this home place that you will have never seen before, that nobody's ever seen before. And it's a place that is felt and loved, but it's been very hard to think. And I'm going to try to show you then how to think a bioregion, as it were. So first, next slide. So you say, Cascadia Geography, place and spirit. The place will be evident. I hope the spirit will emerge, and then we can reflect on that at the end. And I'm going to set things up and then go a little slower and then speed toward the end. And there's a reason to do that, so you can... Poet's really good here. What I've asked you to do as we go through these slides, these images, is imagine the continuity, the dynamism that flows from slide to slide. So the next storytelling should be in an animation. Okay. So I'm just giving, this is not the end at all. This is just a new beginning. So I'm going to have to invite another generation to come along and reimagine this in a new way and tell a story that's never been told before, as you will partly hear today. So that's the plan. Always start with where we are at. And I first need to just lodge a tacit frame of reference that gets us in eternal trouble and is the cause of many of our troubles. So you say, where are we at? That usually resolves down to where am I at and how am I going to get from here to there? And that's the answer, right? We're all very familiar with the roadmap, which shows political boundaries, how to get from point A to B. And that's really the perspective of the ego who's trying to get from here to there. And that is then a spatial frame of reference, which is our native frame of reference, which is trouble. So if the world resolves into an ego trying to get from point A to point B, then its space is simply the distance between those points. And nothing in between matters. Everything else dissolves. What I would call the matrix of the world, all that known and loved landscape that we actually inhabit, our inhabitations, all dissolve in these abstractions of states and markets. So what we're going to do, this has its value, but we're going to set this aside. I'm going to ask you to consciously, deliberately, even mentally close your eyes and erase all those lines on the received maps. Return to the face of the place, what I would call primary reality, and we're trying to get our feet back on the ground. So let the mountains and the valleys and the rivers and the coastline, let your home, the community, the neighborhoods, the towns, the watershed, let them come through, and let's try and find out how they articulate together. So where we're at then is always place. I do not know what space means. Geography is a study of space. What the hell is that? I have no idea, in fact, what space is. Space is an abstraction of place. We're caught in these spatial constructs. We need to return to our home ground. So there is a danger in Cascadia. Sometimes I think we should just stop using the word for a while and try to find out what it means in terms of being on the ground. I want to be clear very quickly, Cascadia is not a container in which we project our ideologies. I'll repeat, it has nothing to do with an abstract spatial container in which we are zoned or something, in which we project our ideologies and moralities. Why is that? Because it is a reality. Cascadia has always been here. We're not waiting for Cascadia now. It's here, it's been here. We're the ones who haven't been here. So we need to get our feet on the ground. And that means then, as we go into the life of the place and ask, well, how does the place work on all these levels? How does the life of the place work? How can we situate ourselves within that woven world? A bioregional map is a map of the woven world in depth. And I'll show you how that works. The very fact that I had to create these maps, I'm not a cartographer, but I had to create maps that never existed before, or create a whole new template for understanding them, is testimony to how hard it is to dislodge. So I'm going to ask you several things here. Erase all those lines on the map, and imagine an animation as we go through these. Okay, it's going to require more than what you see here to get started. So my quest a long time ago, 30 years ago, with these gentlemen and family and others, was to discover not only the face of the place, the shape and the boundaries of the natural place, but its rhythms and regime and rhythm, and how it was formed and how it works and unfolds. Welcome, welcome. Tell them they need some more chairs.
Chairs down.
3 chairs.
Okay, let's start going.
There's an empty seat next to you. Would you raise your hand so we can see it? Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and just hit the... No, the headline. Oh, that's okay. Oh. Wow. Are you okay? It's always better to have a smaller room in a political rally than a larger room. Okay, this is a website, and there's going to be a new map when you walk out today, downloadable for free. that you've never seen before. And as I said, I hope that some of you walk out and say, I live now in a different place than when I came in. Ready? Okay. Here we go. We're going to start with the old center, kind of homage to the place and the site from which Cascadia got its name. Now, this is the Columbia Gorge. Gosh, I wish we could go darker.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
And you're all hearing fine? So we go back to the heart, the center, the naming place. Talking about old folks here. Okay, that's not clear to me. Is that clear to you? Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay.
That's the Columbia Gorge now. But this are the Cascades of the Columbia River. Those Cascades of the Columbia River, they're under Bonneville Dam now. And of course, the Cascades of the Columbia were just an endless series of cataracts that were frightful. And of course, the Indians knew how to do them. They portaged around with the whites, came over the trail, and drowned, and drowned, and drowned, and drowned, and drowned. You hear these horrific stories of them, taking rafts and trying to make it good. Oh, foolish! Only foolish people from far away from the east would try to brave these rapids. So there were, I don't know, hundreds of these rapids, but you can wiki Cascades of Columbia. Lots of them, okay? Next. So that's just one. That's our naming place. So apocryphal, I think, but if you stand by those Cascades, and on either side, you're in the forehead of the mountain gods, there's Hood, oh my God. And then you pivot, and there is Adams. And so it's like the center of the world. You're in this cleft, these foreheads, these two mountain gods like this, and then it's white water pouring down off of these hills. And then through the middle is the great river of the west. And so we go to the next one. And next. And this was the native center of the region, right? The greatest concentration of folks, First Nations in the country, in the whole region. And everything is there. I don't actually need to say much, right? The river, the pounding white water, Saily Falls. They said it was. They go. That's too fast. That's a young man speaking. So you go there and the ground would shake and you'd hear the heart of the world. So literally, the thunder that you'd hear the heart of the world pound. And so they knew they were home. And then you can see the abundance. Okay, we'll just sail through. This is not the full story, but it's kind of where we're at now. Okay, that's the Dells Dam that replaced Saily. By the way, Saily still runs underneath, right? You heard about that? Yes. Yeah, he's still alive underneath on the floor down there. They've done studies and so on. So you can actually see a video of the ghost falls that endures, that reminds us it's coming back. You mentioned that kind of a ghost coming back last night. It's been returning. This is contemporary. It's right now. It's taken last year. And there's something about, I don't know if you've seen the wind farms, good, bad. They're massive. The scale of them is enormous. They are literally not hundreds of acres, not thousands of acres. They're probably getting to be hundreds of thousands or millions now, all over our region. And there's something about that heat mirage. Now, okay, here's how we start. We didn't start with Cascadia. You can't start with something that big because you can't know it. You just start in your backyard. To get a chance, those maps mounted there began to tell some of that story. And we actually began here in your backyard, and we made friends with the poets. Who's singing the plays? Who's giving us our best, deep, lived phenomenologies of the plays? One of them was Robert's son. So here's just the people coming in and sound. And this is Ishi. It's not a great picture, but this is the width of the field here, of the mist, of the fog, of the inland sea. And so that's our first map. So in 1985, I wrote to Rain Magazine, great magazine, pioneer magazine in Portland, Oregon. And they said, what do we call this place, our region? And so I said, well, let's get our scales right. If we're talking about, hey Jim, help me out. They say, well, where do you live? Well, let's see, I've got to go this way. No, that's south. Okay, I started right. Oh, we live in a great bowl of green waters. And then echoing Robert, where many rivers run down to an inland sea. So imagine this is the crest of the Cascades. And imagine this is the crest of the Coast Range and the Insular Range and the Oles. Can you see? You put your hands just so. You cup them in like that. You can see this bowl of green waters. You can see all those rivers and the lines of your palm. So you do that with kids. And you can teach them the shape of the place. And you can begin to see that life course through the place. So I wrote to them, and look how hip they were. They had no idea. So I named this river if you go from Seattle to King County, I don't do Lane County, King County. They're better than most, but I don't know. What's the next larger natural address? And you say, what are my natural bioregional addresses? We go to the watershed, right? And then what? The ecoregion, and so we named this ecoregion. Planet Drum was so hip, San Francisco in the mid-80s, that they drew this. And this is the first map ever drawn of this ecoregion here, drawn by an artist, anonymous, down in San Francisco. Can we do the next one? And so we said, Robert, you have this, he had bunch grass on the east side, wheat farming, and Ish River on this side, which was the, he wrote to a Japanese stamp maker and said, I want a stamp. The guy said, well, who are you? Where are you from? He says, well, I don't know. It took a long time. I live in the Ish River country between two mountain ranges where many rivers run down to an inland sea. And that's his inscription. He did the calligraphy for us. And we did that for a bioregional Congress. This gentleman helped organize a series, including, this is Peter Moulton from Oliwa. And I always say Peter's about 100 people. He's not just one people. They've got one of the deepest ecocultures in the whole region going there. So anyway, we had a conference in Bellingham, first Cascadia conference in 86, then this one. Okay, I'm going to speed up now. That's some of the history. I'm just trying to show you how this stuff emerged. And then the next one. And there we are now. The bioregionalists got a poet to give us his icon, his image, to do the calligraphy for it. We made that poster, we had the conference, and Bert Weber, geography professor at Western, I guess got the bug. I've never actually met him. And he pushed and pushed the Saily Sea. Now, I'm still partial to the Ish River country, but you can also call it the Saily Sea. I think just something missing, but it's official. This is the official name because it had no name as a body of whole. The other one you need to change here is Hood Canal. Terrible. It's not a canal. Who cares about Hood? And the bioregional poets named it. Nobody knows. Twana Fjord. Correct on both accounts. Okay. You ready? We're going to go faster now. So giving you some of how this came to be. Okay, here we go. Now there's a very odd little map that Dan and I did, and it's over there, called the Watersheds of Seattle. And that's the scale that you first started, your own backyard. You go up successive addresses. So Dan and I and a bunch of other people got on their bikes, figured out that not walking, not cars, the best way to discover, hey, there you go, was to get on your bicycle and just go really slow and let gravity take you which way or another. So we said, we went to Seattle, said, hey, just give us a map of watersheds. Okay? Doesn't exist. I don't think it exists. So that was the first GIS-based, not very good GIS-based map of the watersheds of Seattle that we presented, Dan and I did, at the first GIS conference in Washington. Okay, these are just a whole series of images. That's a flag up in Baker, one of our favorite places. The map right behind you in the corner, that's the key image before you leave. You look at that. That's the first map ever made of Cascadia. It was very difficult. It's kind of out of print, but this is the text to it. And we'll go on to the next one here. Yeah, that's it right there. So people say, why watersheds? This gets you into the idea of the levels, the depths that resonate above and below. Watersheds were a religion at that time in the region environmentally. Everything was reframed in terms of place-based management and watersheds. But lots of reasons to go to rivers and to watersheds. But on this map and in the bioregional, they were a proxy for ecosystems. Okay? Two-dimensional map, hand-drawn. I call it folk art. When you think in terms of watersheds and the life that gives to the place, and of course it's through the place, you're really talking about the ecosystems. Now once I taught ecology here, and I thought I understood ecology and ecosystems, but it wasn't deep enough, and so I'll show you what I think now ecology really is. Okay, we're going to speed up. So these just shows you some of the corners of that. That's up in southeast Alaska, up at Icy Bay and Yakutat Bay, up, and where that international line comes in, that's Mount St. Elias. I think it's about 1808, 1806. This is Cape Mendocino. Most people don't know, a fabulous place. This is where the San Andreas Fault goes out to sea. There's a deep, deep bioregional cultures where ecological restoration, the salmon habitats and so on was invented by bioregionalists, Freeman House, David Simpson. Totem salmons, the book Totem Salmons. Those are those guys there. Next. This is just what Cape Mendocino looks like. You stand on a beach south of Cape Mendocino, and you're in California's wave-cut beaches. It's just like California. Go down to like Mendocino, the town, and you have that nice flat, grassy sward. You pivot north, and it looks like you're in Alaska. You can't tell the difference. That's how deep the King's Range. 4,000, about 3 miles from the plate boundary going way up to the King's Range. It's an incredible place. They can hardly keep asphalt on the streets, on the roads, because it's just everything's roiling. It's like being in a roller coaster. It's so dynamic. And there's Yellowstone, which I didn't have room for on the map. So those are your 3 corners along with Columbia ice fields, where the Fraser and the other big river called the Columbia. Okay, next. Keep going next. One more. So these are, so here are the key descriptions, the first classic descriptions, and they're still very useful. Cascadia is a land rooted in the very bones of the earth, animated by the turnings of sea and sky, the mid-latitude wash of winds and waters. Can you read that?
Sure. Cascadia arises from both a natural integrity, landforms, earth plates, weather patterns, and ocean currents, watersheds, flora, fauna, ecology, and a socio-cultural unity. Native cultures, a shared history and destiny.
That's us. So it's one of the newest and most diverse places on Earth. I like this. A deep, furrowed, laminated, and flowing land poured from the North Pacific. So in a nutshell, I'll warn you, you say, well, what is that bioregion? People go toward single spatial features or images. Oh, it's fir trees. Oh, it's salmon. If you're farther inland, you'd say, oh, it's buffalo. Stop. Don't do single categories. It has nothing to do with the life of a bioregion. Okay, that's a trap. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to speed up now. Okay? You got both jumping in. Okay, I walked around, drove all around every summer. Kids went, we saw places, and so on. And I realized, my God, you know, I've only been concentrating inside. So this was the first great leap beyond the boundaries to the context, to a continental context. And I realized, oh, I've got a pointer. Okay. Oh no, go back one.
Sorry.
That's good. So that's the boundaries of Cascadia. From Mount Shasta flows Sacramento River, fairly important to our next bioregion to the south. This one in here is in the Great Basin. That's the Humboldt, which dives into the sands up the Great Basin, which means it has nothing to the sea. Over here rises the Green River, which is one of the main sources of the Colorado River. The Yellowstone, the Missouri, and Missouri, along with the Ohio, they're the main sources, the two main sources of the. Then you go up to Saskatchewan, south, north, Athabasca, Peace, and then places that people don't know about, the Mackenzie, the Yukon comes right off the backside of Cascadia, and a lovely river, the Copper. Cascadia feeds North America. 25% of the runoff of North America comes from this region. Not flowing inside, that we give away these green sweet waters to the rest of the country. So the ecology of North America is crucially constituted by the waters that we give away. Now there's problems there too in the future. Okay, we'll just keep going. That's just a beautiful, iconic image we're going to go. Now, so what we're going to do here, and then I'm going to speed up. Well, you need to begin to think of where are we at? Okay, here's our bioregional addresses. Here's your home and the family and all the relations to the domestic world. And there's your neighborhood. That's the first level, right? Home to neighborhood. Neighborhood to community. Community to... That's a problem. We're going to say watershed. Watershed to... Rounding up the scale, ecoregion. Ecoregion to... Bioregion. Bioregion. Okay, let's stop with ecoregion.
Go too fast.
No quiz. Okay, we are right there in the heart of the Ish River. Here's Vancouver Rock there. So that is then this context, which now is being called the Saily Sea, which we helped name. There's 75 ecoregions in Cascadia. So those are the rooms in the house of the bioregion. Okay? And those are composed of contiguous watersheds which share a similar character. And that formal description is on those maps. So if you want to get it formally, then I'm going to race by. Now, they're there. So here you go. We used to say, I live on Queen Anne Hill. We live on Queen Anne Hill with our family. Here's our 7 from McGraw. Queen Anne Hill. Queen Anne to Seattle. Seattle to the Duwamish, Snoqualmie. Choose your pick there. Duwamish to
Saily Sea.
the Saily Sea, the Ish River. But we want to know, the bioregion is the forgotten country in between all these other spaces that we flee to. So we want to know our relationships. The bioregion is all about relationalities. So we want to know all those contiguities and how those fit together. All of those ecoregions fit together. Because together they create the place. So 75, next. Oh, well, here's where we live. In the Willamette. There's the road, Umpqua. Here's the little eel down here. The end of that, where the Cascadia ends right there. There's Yellowstone. And so on. Now, a lot of people have copied that map, but you know they don't know what to do with that map. They need to re-inhabit it, of course, and begin to tell the story of each of those places, right? On all kinds of levels. Next. Well, hi. That's, we're going to the Continental Divide now. That is, anybody know from BC? Kootenai down from Vermilion Pass, right down from the Continental Divide. Beautiful river, powerful river. Next. Let's go to the continent. Let's go to the continent, the rim. So those are the bioregions of Western North America. This is my second centerfold that's coming out this week in another publication from Planet Drum. They're resuscitating that. And with a description of how you map that, which is basically the second half of the show, which I'm going to race on to now. Let's do one more. These three, see there, Cascadia? Cascadia. Great Basin, California. And this is on the new map, which I'm going to show you here in a little while. Matt and Amanda, or Katie, get ready here. So on the new map I'm making, this is a little what they call a locator globe, professionally made by me instead of craft work. But it shows you in the context. This line is the backbone of the continent. This is the Cordillera, the rope caused by the subduction of those plates. So this shows you, for instance, the Great Plains in the sedimentary apron on the Craton, which we'll show you in a second, and Saskatchewan, Missouriana, Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Arkansas, Texas.
And the St. Andrews Fault, is that correct, going up?
Yeah, oh, don't get rid of it. Okay, next. Okay. Does that slide work?
Yeah.
That shows
Yes.
Okay.
We're big.
We're big, okay. We're not the biggest.
Okay, but we're big.
1, 2, 3. For this purposes, I would call it micro, meso, and macro. Okay, so I can go from my home, I can locate my town over here in my watershed. Now I have the whole region, and now I have the continent rim. I'm not going to map North America. It's too many. Okay, hold those things together. Okay, here we go. Kootenai in Idaho, same river in Idaho. And keep going. Okay. Oh, that's the new map. This is available outside, purchase afterwards. It's a small one. It's going to be on the website too. And so I just wanted something small and compact that tells the story. Since you can take a look at that, I'm going to pass over that. That took about 9 months to make.
How many years? 40 years.
Okay, so that's the new short version of Cascadia. What I want to do is hustle on to the big guy. Okay, so you can get one of these yourself, and hopefully it's self-explanatory. And the same logic that I explained on the words of the previous. No, it's okay. This is my river. This is the waterfall. See, that's the Holly Falls up there, Spirit Falls. And these are the many steps on the waterfall trail. And again, that's where I live. That's where I was born. That's where I'm from. So you can see kind of how Cascadia is born. But actually, we hatched it hiking and climbing here in the North Cascades, which has this Cascadian plaid just pouring down through these fabulous forests and so on. Okay, keep going. Okay, I'm never going to finish. So, okay, keep going. So that's the, so now here's the logic real quick, which makes the new map. Okay, we're moving into logic now, meta logic of how you actually make maps. Is that Anna? Hi. So you start with the world we inhabit, the terrain, the landscape that we know and love, that we move with now. Okay, you ready? You're going to have to imagine this. So there's the land, the terrain. Then we go, analytically, to the earth below and the sky above. So the earth below are all the earth forces, the deep geological forces, the earth plates, the hot spots, etc. Everything that has a surface expression. But that surface expression then is met by the sky, which is the climate, the winds and the waters. You go up into our are long-term pressure cells. You can name the 5 visitors which create the weather here, right? Aleutian low, you know that. That makes us gray and green. Brings the moisture. Then the next one, it was 92 on the Oregon coast yesterday.
Wow.
That's the
Pineapple Express.
no, it was dry, hot.
Okay.
The
Pacific High.
Pacific High. Okay. So you don't know the other 3. Gee, why don't we have them? We should have these stories because they make the place. You want them real quick and then I'll just toss along? Aleutian low, Hawaiian high. That's the dance. That's summer and winter. They move up and down. Then the Pineapple Express, Hawaiian low, the low. We had huge ice storms in Eugene, the Willamette Valley, a lot of damage. That was the bear, the blue bear, prowling down from the north, which brings the ice. And when its paw goes through the Aleutian low, its paw then, like shaved ice, through the kiss of the marine, the maritime, and that snow falls like shaved ice as his paw passes through. Okay, and then I'm going to keep one back. Okay, so this is just showing what it means to think in depth. We're going to go into the weave in depth, and so you go the earth below and the sky above. So our first template is, here's the terrain, here's the geology below, here's the sky above, and the marriage of earth and sky is that terrain that we live in, right? And then the hydrology, the rivers, are the gift of the sky, which then inscribe this life into the land. So that's your first template. That's the physical template. So we're going to do that real quick. Okay, this is the new map, and this is where we start. This is the barest of the bare. This is your base map. This is the terrain, the shaded physical relief, they call it. It's from a DEM model, all in the GIS. But that's what, if you just take one factor, it would look like. And that was the base map for the new Cascadia map. Okay, that's where you start. Okay. Well, do you know how you make a map? The cartographer we work with is famous for saying, you don't make a map, you build a map like a house, layer by layer. And that's literally what you're going to see. And now I'm going to speed up to make Paul happy. Okay, this is an elevation that you showed terrain. This just shows the elevation, so you can see the higher and the lower. This is also part of the map. That's a transect, which you can do so easily. That took about 5 minutes to get on a GIS. So that is the profile from there out on the abyssal plain. See that right there? The mid-ocean, not mid-ocean, but our ridge, from the spreading ridge. That is that. Here's the meters, and here's the kilometers. That is then the continental slope right there. That's the Willamette. That's the Willamette Valley. That's the Cascades. That's why you got to stop thinking of Cascadia as our Cascades. Look. That's the Cascades. That's the plateau. This is Idaho. You got to make friends with Idaho. I don't care what you do. We don't care.
We tried.
Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're
They don't return calls. Where's Jocelyn? She's my witness. I swear.
right there. That's the Yellowstone caldera. That's how big the Yellowstone caldera is on the scale of this region. That's the hot spot. And then out onto the high plains. That's the big orange right there. Let's go on. Okay. I know, geology over. Forget about all the rocks. Look at the pretty colors, and it's that simple. Okay. Okay.
Joanne had a poem about that last night.
The first thing thing to note is where Cascadia is not, and I'll do this just real quick. That's called the Canadian Shield. That's the bedrock of the continent. You'll see in a second. It's called the Craton. It's a hard bedrock of the continent. That's been scraped by so many glaciations. It's just pure rock and pure little pockets of lakes and so on. You can look at it and wander fabulously in Google Earth. This is the Great Plains that you know. That's the sedimentary. Can we do the next one? This is us over here, right? Can you see how different we are? Here's the simplification. That was that Canadian Shield, but this is North America. That's North America. That's the hard bedrock, the Craton. Strong. All of this is that sediment. It was an inland sea. This is the sedimentary, the layers laid down, the sedimentary. That's where all the oil, the shale, the Bakken shale, that's where all the fracking of the oil comes from. Right there. That is not us. Okay, we're not to Cascadia yet. This is the deformed edge of the Craton, so when you go to the Tetons, you go, oh my God, you know, stunning. That is the, okay, here's the Craton, here's North America, here's this sedimentary edge, and as Cascadia comes crashing, all these other ones come crashing in, it deforms the basement rocks. The basement rocks, 1.5 billion years old, they get blasted up. The power is so great, they get blasted straight up in the air, 14,000 feet. And when you look at the Tetons, you're looking at the deformed, reactivated Craton of North America. They are not the same geology as the rest of this, okay? All right, we're going to have, this is us. This is the accretionary belt. This has all been rafted in, exotic terrains. Next. This is us, another in terms of, I'm going to go on to this.
We are so pretty! How pretty we are!
Do you see how different and complex these exotic terrains that have been rafted in from the sea? Let's go on to the next one. This is just BC, and BC's geologists have been incredible. They put the big picture together before the Americans in many ways. And these are the belts that they named in the 80s. Here's like the, isn't that the Omanika? Hi, Omanika, right up there. Here's the edge of North America. You see that? Right there you just saw? Okay, these are the things we need to keep going. Okay. Don't look at the images alone. Go next. Okay. You say, why do you do Cascadia up there in southeast Alaska? Do you see those faults? Do you see those faults come through? Do you know where they converge? It's called Mount Logan, highest, second tallest in North America, largest in Canada. I flew around, it's 100 miles around the base, the largest massive in the world almost, and it's got 14 peaks over 14,000. It's 1980. And what you're seeing there is a 4D image of power, and that's the result of those plates. And that's why Cascadia, I say, does not go out to the Prince William Sound and all the rest of it. That's a different bioregion. This is where the Aleutian Trench, 30,000 feet, picks up. The Aleutian Trench. And that's where Cascadia goes, right there. It follows that Pamplona spur right up. Okay, keep going. Okay, you may not realize it, but none of this is stable. This is all rotating. This is the Great Basin. It's a pull-apart basin. It's being extended right now. It's twice as wide now as it was a while back. This is the Selenian block that was referenced last night and it's going north. But that's where it goes out, San Andreas Fault goes out to sea. This area is rotating. That's going north, and that's the pivot point. Okay, keep going. Go. Okay, you know what this stuff, we can, next, you can do that, right? You can fill that in. Okay, we're going to go, that's Yellowstone. A hot spot, different, not subduction. Keep going. I'll do this in 2 seconds. This is a weird map you've never seen before. If you imagine the Earth as a perfect mathematical sphere, perfect geometric sphere, and then you measure the mass, that's called the gravity, and then the deviations from the perfect sphere is called the gravity anomalies. And what it shows you is the density of it. Okay? This is like a, that's fine, that's fine.
No.
No, not fine? Look, do I need to explain much?
Yes.
Look at that. That's Yellowstone. That's the bighorns. We just ran that transect. Remember that right across there? That's the bighorns there. That's Yellowstone. That's California.
So is the red density or is it heat?
This is density.
It's like solid rock.
Well, it's all that craton, it's all the sedimentary, and then it's all the massive, you do not know how massive that hot spot is. All the Snake River Plain is the blowtorch, the trail of the blowtorch, up from the mantle of the earth to the Yellowstone. And that's why on the map I showed you the actual scale of the Yellowstone volcano. Okay. So when you think about the geology region, you think about accretion, you think about subduction. Yeah, not time. This is at Yellowstone. Okay. I think we should just run through the rest of it. That's what Yellowstone looks like underneath. Next. The eye of God. Yes, okay. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. We'll just keep going. Keep going. Okay, we aren't going to make it. This is the sea. This is the new map, some of the new maps. Keep going. Next. They named them here. Next. Keep going. Seafloor. That's the age of the seafloor, blue. Just real quick, we'll do this one. This is the Cascadia subduction zone. These are the 3 microplate ridges. Most people have never seen it before, but this is a beautiful graphic of one of the segments of those ridges called the cleft ridge. Just real quick. That is the axial magmatic valley from which new magma is coming up. Not everybody understands this. So what causes that subduction? Why does that plate go that way? Because it's being pushed in both directions by that upwelling of the lava. If that were not there, there would be that plate would not subduct and there would be no Cascade volcanoes. So this plate is going that way, and that plate is going that way because of that magma there. It's going that way. Now, this is unusual here. Right there is a hot spot, smaller one, overriding a trench. Imagine Yellowstone overriding a spreading ridge. Very unusual. Okay, we're going to have to move. Keep on. Ocean currents. Have no time for this. Ocean currents. No, still. That's the crenellation, the way the land and sea are woven, intertwined here. In the northwest. Keep going. Okay. No time. Upwelling, sea surface temperature, chlorophyll bloom. In the North Pacific, that blank is chlorophyll bloom. You can see what in California. Salmon range, salmon Willamette Falls, there. Shasta. Okay, Matt and Katie, let's have the unveiling and then I'll just roar through the rest of it.
I think we need a drum roll.
Okay, well, let's go back to that.
Yeah, get there.
Where's Katie? Okay, there's a new Cascadia map. The small one is available out there. The big one that's in work in progress is not available yet. About 90%. That's Katie, that's that.
we have questions, we'd like to have some time for questions.
Okay.
That would be it.
The second part that we're not going to have time for is showing the vegetation, basically, of the region in the forest, which is a whole new wonderful thing, which you can see in part here.
There are lights behind them.
When you get us some lights behind you. This is the new map. It will be available for sale later in the year. It's the finest bioregion map ever made. And it's probably one of the most significant maps of the entire region ever made. Okay. Questions?
Wow.
We only got halfway through.
Only got about 10 minutes for questions.
Well, they're coming in at 10:15, so we got about 15 minutes tops, but who has questions about the massive amount of information that was right before your eyes? You were saying that this is the San Andreas Fault, right?
That's the Mendocino Fraction Zone. It's 3,000.
So San Andreas Fault, just to get a sense of how we define Cascadia, that's where it goes up, right? And this part of Oregon, you don't consider part of this bioregion because this is part of the Great Basin bioregion, right?
Yeah.
And up here at the top, this is Icy Bay right in here, and Yakutat is sort of that northeastern boundary.
The white is ice. This is the continental slope. This is the seafloor. The green, there's topography here, there's hydrology, the rivers. The green is vegetation. The colors are vegetation.
And so this boundary is the continental divide,
That is the
and
continental.
that is the continental divide coming in like this, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Montana.
There's a question. Gordon.
My age, I don't have time to go back to university and study geology and biology and all this kind of stuff. Is there one book that you could recommend that would tell some of the story you're trying to tell?
There's lots of geology books.
I mean, the story you're talking about.
No, you heard it.
Well, the website,
I will try to write it.
his website, Cascadia-Institute.org, has some of the information. And it has some
There
of
will be a whole new text, like an easy main explanation. It's not intuitive what the ocean seafloor is about, what it does, what's going on. So I'm sorry.
Go to your website then.
What was it, sir?
Dave, in the 80s, you were working on a map using the poets to describe the place. Could you say something about your project that you envisioned then, of a poem a year that would describe the place, going from the sea coast to the valleys, to the hills, to the high plains, through spring and...
Well, it was called Cascadia Season Songs at first, singing the place, because we wanted to find out who really was singing the place. And there were literally, I stopped at about reading, I read about 400 books of Northwest poets, and we collected our favorites. Gary said, it's probably a bit much to try to cram everything into 4 seasons. So we did the next version called Mountains, Rivers, Sea, and Sky, which I have in the car. And so I never got Sky done, but the point is to pull together not place per se, not post, you didn't load it with a salmon or an eagle or something, but that evoked the spirit of the place, as I'm trying to do with the slideshow. And we still have some of that, and the wonderful voices all over the region are very, very different type, sound, and quality, and craft, and it's fabulous. You want to say anything?
No.
Questions about the map, questions about the way you have to imagine them all rolling together.
Yeah, how did you pick the edges?
Well, at first, it was simply traveling and saying, what's on here? What's on the other side? I know this area. What's on the other side? And then what's on the other side of the other side? And then once you travel like out on the high plains, you know you're radical. California, you're in a different world. You go down to palm trees and rice fields, and so on. You're in a different world.
But those are such diffuse borders, though, and on the map they're very hard lines. So did you face like mountain ridges or rivers?
Well, at first they were watersheds, but that alone is not sufficient. So that's why I'm showing the map on all layers. I mean, on the second half, which you didn't see, you can see the connection between the terrain, the way it looks, and then you saw the craton, the geology below, and then the hydrology above. A bioregional boundary is an emergence where all those layers above and below, and I didn't get on to the ecological, the second one, and I didn't even look at the sociocultural. That wasn't even in the slideshow, that's too big. So it's where those layers start singing above and below together, and a new song is being sung. So actually, where does Cascadia exist? Where would you go to look at it? It's in the waterfall of energies flowing between all those layers above and below. That's the cascading of energy, of dynamism, which creates the place.
So let me do a couple of housekeeping
Does
things.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Let me do a couple of housekeeping things real quick. And David, you're going to leave this map here in this room.
Yeah, we can look at that, and then there'll be 3 handouts out here, and then we have some of the smaller posters for sale.
So, I mean, buying his maps is a way of helping to slightly, remunerate him for all his time and effort and his energy and his generosity in doing this kind of work so that we could understand better. So that's one good thing to do. Also, I just want to point out Nanaimo right there, right? So the next Cascadia Poetry Festival is happening this weekend next year in Nanaimo. So a local organizing committee is taking this on and hopefully extending the conversation, right? So they're in Nanaimo, and then that's 2015, and we'd love if someone picked up the ball on this side of this imaginary line for 2016. I'm not going to mention any names, Jared Lysing, but that's a possibility. So the notion here is that this is a dialogue that's just beginning, especially the confluence of David's work in bioregionalism and the poetry. The next panel here is innovative Cascadia Poetics. So Nadine Maestas has a wonderful panel that'll be here and start talking about different aspects of that. So they're going to come in and prepare for that in just a few minutes.
Let's just move this back.
Any other questions? Any other questions for David? Yvonne and then Sharon.
I just have a comment. David, I love how you speak about it. You speak about the region in metaphor, and it's very beautiful to listen to you talk about it.
Good. Well, take them and run.
Thank you.
There's a whole bunch of new ones that we need.
And Sharon.
The map you showed that looked like every face on the face of the map was connected by water pieces touching each other. You showed a map.
You mean that one over there,
I
Ecoregions?
couldn't tell, but it was Cascade, and you said every part of it. So my question is every place surrounded by water? Is there no, is every place defined by water flows around it in some way?
Watersheds.
Okay, on the North Pacific, where we have this wash of winds and waters, watersheds have been from time immemorial, upriver, downriver, one of the prime means of, frames of reference and means of organizing human habitation.
So I guess I need to
But-
know what a shed is.
Well, watershed, that's a watershed.
So it's surrounded,
It's,
is anything that's inside the surrounding of water?
A drainage area of a particular river.
ugh, isn't that a terrible phrase? Do you know what Washington State calls its watersheds, or did? Do they still call them WIRAs? Watershed, no, Water Resource Inventory Area number 39, number 52. Listen, why don't you just call it the Yakima? Why don't you call it, when actually everybody knows what the hell are you doing with this number? That's the bureaucratic sleight of hand, the transposition into that abstract categories, fight it at every step of the way. Name the places.
So, do you think that salmon is the signature species of this Cascadia region? Or if not, what do you think the signature species are that sort of inhabit these multiple layers?
Well, salmon clearly is. You saw one map real
Yeah.
quick. That's the home of the 7 species, salmon species. So there's no place, hardly any place else, in places in Alaska. So it's clearly the home territory. It's the home territory because of the cool water pouring down all those rivers, cooling it off, and then the upwelling creating the nutrients and the chlorophyll, that whole food cycle. And salmon clearly is the totem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and signature.
But I would say if you want one icon, it's the Cascades. That's why they are the signature. And the key thing about both salmon and the Cascade, well, they're kind of linked together, is they're dynamic. We need to get dynamic, flowing, unfolding, emerging images of what creates the relationality or integrality of these places. We think of a region as a system of places that flow together. Set aside this static, statist, categorical, fixed notion of the world, because it gets us in trouble.
One last question,
One last.
right here, gentlemen.
It's broader than the Cascadia one. I was curious, when you brought up the map in the beginning, you say, what is this for? This is to get us somewhere from that. And I was thinking about the younger generation, and that wouldn't yeah, I mean, that's not what a map's for. Is there any thoughts about the sort of transformation about what a map means over time?
Well, I don't know, Matt, you want to say anything? He's a DPS generation.
I mean, I think that the dynamics of how people interact with place now through maps and navigation systems is fundamentally changing that paradigm. I also think, I had a lot of conversations with my dad about this, eventually that will become a video game. The cartography will become an interactive, emergent modality that's spread across all
Like
sorts
not given a map, but you get to make your own map.
Yeah, you will navigate it and create it on your own, the same way that even Google Maps and the maps today, they're really interaction platforms. They're not fixed either. So I actually think when I talk to my dad and he talked about this map being the beginning, it really is the beginning of the next generation of thinking there will be, I think, embodied by interactive media.
And I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily, because what it means is that we look at a map for, okay, how do I get there? You know, so we have that layer that's put on top of that. Young people don't look at it as that. It's just a description of place, or it's whatever it is. So they don't look at maps as that's what you use in order to get something. So it might be a good thing to kind of separate that part out.
I look at this as evocation or song of home, how our home place works, so that we can re-inhabit it together. Paul, you've been wonderful. Thank you all.